Hello everyone, I'm Great Author, a fantasy writer that loves putting things on tables and charts, and this is The Science of Fantasy. In this episode, we are going to talk about an essential component of every magic system, the thing that remains in the minds of the audience after they read the book or watched the movie, the effect. As you may recall from my previous videos, the effect is the last part of the magic system, representing what it actually does. If you haven't watched the other Theory of Magic Systems videos, check them out, I'll leave the link in the description. The most important thing to know about the effect is that it represents change. There are three main types of change: conjuration, where nothing becomes something; transformation, where things become another thing; and vanishment, where something became nothing. Another factor to take into account is what exactly is that something. Most of the time, it's simply an object, a conglomeration of matter, being it alive or not. While full transformation like rock to pigeon is pretty common if you want your magic system to stand apart, focusing on a certain characteristic is a great idea, and I give you a few examples. A great deal of the good old alchemy focused on chemical changes, especially turning common metals such as lead into precious ones like silver and gold. The location of an object is affected in teleportation, be it through portals or the apparition spell in the Wizarding World universe. Visibility is played with when something is turned invisible. Invisibility is actually a pretty common stock superpower, and I think it will be interesting to see a system in which the power is to make other things invisible. Even the history of an object can be subjected to change. The magic system presented in the acclaimed Brandon Sanderson's novella, The Emperor's Soul, is specifically about this. By stamping an object with a specially designed sigil, you can change its history, transforming, for example, a low quality pot into a piece of art or even a copy of an antiquity. But the subject of change can be also other things like information. While technically we are conjuring information all the time in our brains, there are some situations where the source of the information is magical. Oracles and fortune tellers create information about the future, commonly known as prophecies. This kind of magic is also useful as a plot device and is featured heavily in fantasy literature. Rules. While this might seem like something a computer scientist will say, yes, magic can be built around if then statements. The best example here is Sympathy from the Kingkiller Chronicles by Patrick Rothfuss. In this system, the magic users create links between objects, so when an object is affected, the other suffers the same change. So if a stone is moved, the linked stone will also move. And this is not limited to position. Depending on the link, any form of energy can be transferred. Elements are really just the result of humans trying to divide the entire existence into logical subunits. There are plenty of elemental systems and I love to talk about them in a future video. Until then, here is a famous example: Avatar: The Last Airbender, based on the classical four elements. Let's move to the next part, which is about the characteristics of the effect. An effect has multiple variations, the most important of these being in quantity and quality. Quantity is pretty straightforward, it reflects how much of the change is inflicted. As powers are most of the time positive, a greater quantity is preferable over a lesser one. Quality is much more complex, it reflects how good is the change and is concerned with the product. There are two components of quantity: perfection and durability. Perfection is how close the product is to an idealized version of it. Humans have an idea of how everything should be, so any object possesses inherent qualities without whom cannot be recognized as such. For example, we see the perfect fire as hot. In this case, a very hot fire can be considered of high quality, while one with low temperature is of low quality. Durability is how much the product resists, either in time or when exposed to exterior forces. Durability in time can be seen, for example, in the magic system of the Lightbringer series. In this series, drafters use light to conjure metal words with different qualities. Unless they can do it perfectly, the conjured materials resist for a period directly proportional with the will of the drafter before crumbling into dust. Quantity and quality are part of something a lot called the effect equation. What it says is that quality multiplied by effect divided by cost equals a constant I name power level. Each setting has its own power level, and even different individuals in the same setting can have different power levels if the author is not a big fan of fairness. What these equations tell us? Basically, if you want to increase your quantity, you need to either decrease the quality or increase the costs. If you want to increase the quality, you have to either decrease the quantity or increase the costs. Or maybe both. But what does this word costs mean? The answer varies. Cost is anything that represents a downside either by limiting the amount of effect that can be produced or by inflicting a debuff on the user. In many cases, these are combined in some sort of draining effect by which the user loses energy when using a power. Overtaxing can knock the user unconscious or even kill him, thus putting a limit on the amount of magic that can be used. The limit can also be a material that is consumed, be it source, channel, or catalysts. More on this in the upcoming source and channel video. The characteristics that do not impact the equation are design and flavor. This has to do more about the visuals and feeling of manifesting effect, but they tend to be the most memorable. In my definition, design is any aspect choice that impacts how magic works, while flavor is purely descriptive and doesn't have an impact. To better understand the difference, let's take as an example a wizard that can cast fire spells. The first spell he can cast creates a ray that ignites anything it touches. The second spell conjures flame around an object of the caster choice from those who sees. These differ based on design. The first spell can be easily blocked with a shield, while the second one needs a wall or other obscurement to break line of sight. But the second one also have a disadvantage. If you're blinded, you can't cast it. By making different effects be useful in different situations, a skilled writer can create tension and a feeling of complexity. For flavor, let's take the first spell and a similar spell that casts an hour of flames instead of a line. As long as both are equally affected by gravitation and travel with the same speed, there is no mechanical difference. Flavor choices are done mostly for the cool factor, which should not be underestimated. There are also some situations where the line between design and flavor is blurred. If the fire mage becomes surrounded by blazing runes when he casts a spell, is this a design or a flavor choice? I leave that as food for thought. Also, if you have any question or want to share an interesting magical effect or superpower, leave a comment below. In the next episode, I'll talk about the two remaining components of magic systems, the source and the channel, how we can classify them and isolate some special cases, and also how they are used. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you soon!